Okay, so what next? Well, I need to now add a suffix to all of the secondary pieces so that we have the primary name and then the secondary suffix. So to do that, we actually need to create a group right here with the Boolean first to isolate those secondary pieces. So if we go towards the bottom here, we can check on this A only pieces, and we can rename that to, let's say, the primary piece underscore group. So we'll do that, and then with this group, just so that you can visually see what that's grabbing, here's a color swap, there's the group. It's basically allowing us to have a group for just this area that was unaffected. Now, because of that, it's really good because we can find a way to leave that piece alone and only work on the names of the secondary pieces. So, first of all, let's use a point wrangle, and I'll show you the vex that I'm thinking about here. We're trying to modify the name attributes, so let's say s at name is going to equal what it currently is, plus, in quotations, a dash, plus secon, in quotations. You can call that whatever you like if you don't like secon. But we're going to do that plus a class attributes. So that class attribute is going to be an integer. So to turn that integer value into a string value that we can use in the name, we're going to use the function itoa. And itoa, the way I think of this and remember it, is think integer to attribute. It's really going to a string, but that's how I remember it. So itoa, we're going to use at class in that. Now, we don't have class yet, so we need to use a connectivity swap. And by doing this, now if we look at our name, right over here, we have primary for dash secon 0. And as you can see, everything has that secondary suffix right there. However, we don't want that, so we want to use the group. So you might think, okay, let's go to the group and say primary piece underscore group. And that is not what you want. Remember, the primary piece is going to be the big piece. So you don't want this only working on the big pieces. We want it working on the secondary. So we'll say everything, so that's a star, except for a little caret right there, primary piece group. Let's see what that did. Go back and forth. Here's our name. And it's still not working. In other words, it's still finding the points on the big piece, and it's applying this secon suffix to it. In order to get this to work, you have to do this expression, and then you have to say primitives right here in the group. When it guesses on that group, that's where it gets itself in trouble, and that's where it's wrong. So now that we have the group type selected properly, this now works as you would expect it to, and all of our pieces are awesome. Now, just to double check that, use the RBD exploded view, and then on here we can say visualize pieces, and we've color coded all the individual pieces based on their name. Wow, so if you didn't believe me with the name being quite the ordeal, maybe you do now. It is quite the ordeal. Now, there's a lot of different ways that people try to go about this whole name thing. Let me tell you why this method is better than some others. And let me just kind of, now that you know what to do, let me tell you why the other methods aren't so great, just for your own knowledge, because at some point I'm sure you'll see other tutorials go through some of these things. Now, if you use the Boolean fracture, the problem here is that there's no way on this Boolean fracture to basically not affect this big piece right here. It's going to affect every single piece and it's not going to give you the option of leaving it alone. In other words, if I press D for display, and, well, let's just zoom in really far here, and I look at the name of the big piece, it's just primary 4. And that's awesome because I don't want a primary 4 dash secon anything. The reason why is because later on, when I go to do that secondary tag, where I say star secon star for the secondary pieces, I don't want it picking up this primary piece. You don't have that option to separate out the suffix on the Boolean fracture. At least right now. I mean, that could change in the future. But right now, it's not there, so that's why you don't want to use that. Now, another method here is to not use these groups and to basically just use this exact method right here. But again, if you don't use the group by the Boolean, you have no way of isolating the main piece. You're left with that same problem again of saying dash secon, and you don't want that. So you don't want to do that. These name stops right here are not going to really help you at all. If you use the connectivity, or not the connectivity, if you use the assemble, that is, it's just going to basically rename everything. It's just going to override everything with whatever you say. So if we create the name attributes, it's not going to really respect this at all. So as an example, if we go here, right now it's just primary 4. And actually, that's because this is going on the primitive right now. We can do an attribute promote just to show you what it's doing. Primitive, or point here from primitive. And basically, yeah, see, it's just going to say piece 24, 30. We don't really have the controls to do it here either. So, in other words, the way that I showed you, even though it feels a little bit complicated, this is ultimately giving you the best control to name it exactly what you want. And that's going to be crucial in any pipeline that uses destruction. So just get in the habit of trying to do that and not always rely on the assemble stop from now on. Okay, so that's enough about names. Let's do something more fun and visually awesome, because even though names are really fun, I like seeing things actually get destroyed. We're going to do that in the next video, and I'll talk about a really cool way of dynamically activating all of those side pieces.